Let me start with a question that might make you a little uncomfortable. Think about the person you feel most drawn to right now, or maybe the person you've already built a life with. How do you actually know if it's real? Not the butterflies, not the late-night texting, not the way your heart does a little somersault when their name lights up your phone. I mean the deep, quiet, unshakable kind of real. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. We've been sold this idea that being meant for someone feels like fireworks, like a movie scene with rain and a perfectly timed kiss. But the psychology of lasting connection tells a very different story, and once you understand it, you'll start to see your relationships with completely new eyes. So let me show you the 5 things that quietly, almost invisibly, happen when two people are genuinely meant to be together. And I promise, by the end of this, you'll know exactly where you stand. The first thing that happens is something so subtle most people miss it entirely, and it's this: your nervous systems begin to sync. I know that sounds like something out of a science fiction film, but it's real, and researchers have actually measured it. When two people feel deeply safe with each other, their heart rates can start to align, their breathing slows in each other's presence, even their brain waves can begin to mirror one another during deep conversation. Scientists call this physiological synchrony, and it's the same mechanism that lets a mother calm a crying baby just by holding it close. Think about what that means for a second. With the right person, your body literally relaxes. The tension you carry around all day, that low hum of stress in your shoulders, it starts to melt the moment they walk into the room. You don't have to perform. You don't have to brace yourself. Your heart isn't racing because you're nervous. It's settling because you're finally safe. And this is the part people get backwards. They think a meant-to-be connection should feel like chaos and intensity, like you can't eat or sleep. But genuine connection doesn't activate your fight-or-flight system. It calms it. So if you find that being around someone makes the noise in your head go quiet, pay attention. Your nervous system has already figured out something your conscious mind is still catching up to. The second thing is one of my favorites, because it's so human and a little bit funny. You start to become a blend of each other. There's this fascinating idea in psychology called self-expansion theory, developed by researchers Arthur and Elaine Aron, and it basically says that we fall in love partly because the other person expands who we are. You absorb their interests, their phrases, even their mannerisms. Suddenly you're using a word they always use. You catch yourself laughing the way they laugh. You develop a taste for the music they love, the food they crave, the strange little hobbies you would have rolled your eyes at a year ago. And here's where it gets beautiful. Couples who stay deeply connected over decades often report feeling like the other person became part of their own identity, like there's no clean line anymore between where you end and they begin. Have you ever noticed how long-married couples sometimes start to look alike, finish each other's sentences, or react to the same joke at the same moment? That's not a coincidence. That's two selves slowly, lovingly merging at the edges. You're not losing yourself. You're growing into a larger version of who you were, with their colors mixed into yours. And when this happens naturally, without force, without one person dissolving into the other, it's one of the truest signs that two people are building something meant to last. The third thing that happens is the one that separates real connection from infatuation. And honestly, this is where most relationships reveal their truth. You become safe enough to be unattractive in front of each other. Now, I don't mean physically. I mean emotionally raw, messy, unpolished, human. Think about it. In the beginning of any romance, we all wear a kind of costume. We show our best angles, our wittiest lines, our most curated selves. But you cannot keep that costume on forever. Eventually you get sick, you get cranky, you cry in a way that isn't pretty, you fail at something and feel ashamed. And the question that decides everything is simple. Can you be a mess in front of this person and still feel loved? Psychologists who study attachment talk about something called a secure base. The idea that the right relationship becomes a kind of home you can always return to, no matter how badly your day went. When two people are meant to be together, they don't just love each other's highlight reels. They hold space for the bad days, the insecurities, the 3 a.m. fears whispered in the dark. There's an old saying that you don't really know someone until you've seen how they treat you when you have nothing to offer. And the deepest connections are built not in the moments of passion, but in the moments of vulnerability, when you let them see the parts of you that you usually hide from the world, and instead of running, they move closer. The fourth thing is something that surprises a lot of people, because we tend to believe that soulmates never fight. We imagine that if it's truly meant to be, it should be effortless, frictionless, like floating downstream. But that's not what the research shows at all. What actually predicts a lasting connection isn't the absence of conflict, it's the quality of repair. Dr. John Gottman, who spent decades studying thousands of couples in his famous Love Lab, found that he could predict with startling accuracy whether a couple would stay together, not by whether they argued, but by how they came back together after the argument. Every couple disagrees. Every couple says the wrong thing, slams a metaphorical door, feels misunderstood. But meant-to-be couples have an almost magnetic pull back toward each other after a rupture. One person softens. Someone makes a small joke to break the tension. A hand reaches across the bed in the dark. They repair. And over time, those tiny repeated acts of reconnection build a relationship that can survive almost anything. So if you've been worried because you and your person argue, take a breath. The argument was never the problem. The real question is, do you always find your way back to each other? Because two people who keep choosing to repair, again and again, are two people quietly proving they're meant to stay. And that brings me to the fifth and final thing, which might be the most profound of all. When two people are meant to be together, they stop keeping score. I want you to really sit with that, because it goes against everything our transactional culture teaches us. We're trained to track everything. Who paid last time, who texted first, who apologized, who gave more than they got. So many relationships quietly rot because both people are standing at an invisible cash register, tallying up debts. But something shifts when a connection is real. The math just dissolves. You stop asking, "What am I getting out of this?" And you start asking, "How can I show up for you?" Not out of obligation, not out of fear, but because their happiness genuinely becomes braided into your own. Researchers call this communal strength, the willingness to meet a partner's needs without expecting an immediate return. And the strange paradox is that when both people give freely like this, neither one feels drained, because the giving flows in both directions like a current that never runs dry. There's a beautiful way to think about it. In a transactional relationship, you're two hands shaking, always measuring the exchange. But in a meant-to-be connection, you're two hands building something together, and you stop counting whose finger laid which brick. You just look up one day and realize you've built a home. So let me bring this back to you, because I know that as you've been listening, you've been holding someone in your mind. Maybe it's a person you're with. Maybe it's someone you're hoping for. Maybe it's someone you lost and are still trying to understand. And here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Being meant for someone was never about fate written in the stars, or some perfect person who completes you the moment you meet. It's quieter and far more powerful than that. It's two nervous systems learning to rest in each other. It's two identities gently blending without erasing. It's the courage to be unguarded, the willingness to repair, and the grace to stop keeping score. These aren't things that happen to you by luck. They're things two people build, choice by choice, day after day. And maybe the most freeing thought of all is this: you're not waiting for the universe to hand you a soulmate. You're learning how to become someone capable of building one. So tell me, which of these 5 did you recognize in your own life? Was it the calm, the blending, the vulnerability, the repair, or the moment you stopped keeping score? Drop it in the comments, because I read them, and I'd love to know your story. And if this gave you a new way of seeing the people you love, stay a while, because there's so much more to understand about why our hearts choose the people they choose.